On April 7, 2026, China helped broker a ceasefire between the United States and Iran. The world applauded. Headlines called Beijing a responsible peacemaker. But here's what those headlines didn't tell you. Just days later, for days, US intelligence revealed that China was secretly preparing to ship shoulder-fired missile systems to Iran. The same kind of missile that had already shot down an American F-15 fighter jet. The same kind of missile that forced a pilot to eject deep inside Iranian territory, triggering one of the most dangerous rescue operations in US Special Operations history. So let me ask you a question, and I want you to really think about this one. If China brokered the ceasefire and China is arming the other side, then what exactly is the ceasefire for? Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you're going to see a triangular power game that most of the world hasn't figured out yet. Welcome to Mido, Unfiltered, the channel where we pull back the curtain on the stories that institutions don't want examined too closely. If you're new here, this is where we go beyond the headlines, beyond the press conferences, and straight into the mechanics of how power actually operates. If you appreciate content that doesn't insult your intelligence, hit that subscribe button right now. We're building a community of people who want the full picture, not the curated one. And trust me, today's story is exactly why this channel exists. Now, let's get into it. To understand what China is really doing, we first need to understand what happened on April 3, 2026. An American F-15E Strike Eagle, callsign Dude 44, was flying a combat mission over southern Iran as part of Operation Epic Fury. This was one of over 13,000 missions the U.S. military had flown since the joint U.S.-Israeli campaign against Iran began on February 28. Just days earlier, President Trump had publicly claimed that Iran had no functioning anti-aircraft systems left, no radar, nothing. He said U.S. aircraft were, quote, just floating over the top of Iran. Then Dude 44 went down. According to Trump himself, that F-15 was hit by a handheld shoulder-fired missile, a heat-seeking manpad, not a sophisticated radar-guided system, not a multi-million-dollar air defense battery, a portable missile that one person can carry and fire. The two crew members ejected, the pilot was recovered within hours in a dramatic daylight rescue. But the weapons systems officer, a colonel, ended up alone in the Zagros Mountains, evading Iranian Revolutionary Guard patrols and local tribesmen, some of whom had been offered a bounty equivalent to $60,000 for any captured American. The rescue operation that followed involved over 155 aircraft and hundreds of soldiers. It has been described as one of the most complex special operations missions in U.S. history. But here's the question no one in Washington wanted to ask publicly: where did that missile come from? And more importantly, who's sending more? I want you to think about that. Drop your answer in the comments. Do you think Iran developed that capability alone, or was there outside help? Let's see what the evidence says. On April 11, 2026, just days after the ceasefire was announced, CNN broke a story citing three sources familiar with recent U.S. intelligence assessments. The report revealed that China was preparing to deliver manpad systems to Iran within weeks. But it wasn't just the weapons that caught Washington's attention. It was the method of delivery. U.S. intelligence indicated that Beijing was working to route these shipments through third countries to disguise their origin. This is not a new playbook for China. For years, Iranian oil headed to China has been relabeled through countries like Malaysia and Indonesia. Iranian ships disable their tracking systems, use shadow fleets, and falsify GPS coordinates. In 2025 alone, shadow tankers made over 1,500 trips from Iran to China. Now that same infrastructure of deception, the same network used to move oil in, appears to be moving weapons out. And here's where this gets really interesting. The Chinese embassy spokesperson responded to the intelligence by saying, and I'm paraphrasing, that China has never provided weapons to any party in this conflict. They called the information untrue. But the US intelligence community was already tracking something else. Before the war even started, Chinese companies had been selling Iran-sanctioned dual-use technology, components that could be used for both civilian and military purposes. Navigation systems, radar components, gyroscopes for missile guidance, and perhaps most critically, sodium perchlorate, a key chemical ingredient in solid rocket fuel. In early March 2026, two Iranian state-owned vessels departed from a Chinese port reportedly carrying exactly that. So when China says it's not sending weapons, ask yourself this: at what point does sending someone all the ingredients to build a bomb become the same as sending them the bomb? Now, to understand why China is doing this, you have to follow the oil. China is the largest buyer of Iranian crude oil on the planet. In 2025, Beijing purchased approximately 1.38 million barrels per day from Iran, That's roughly 13 to 14% of China's total oil imports. And China didn't just buy some of Iran's oil, it bought almost all of it. Over 90% of Iran's total oil exports went to one customer, China. And here's the part that should make you sit up straight. China gets that oil at a discount of $8 to $10 per barrel below global market prices. We're talking about tens of billions of dollars in annual revenue for Tehran. According to the U.S.-China Economic and Security Review Commission, Chinese oil purchases account for roughly 45% of Iran's entire government budget. Let me put that differently. Without China buying its oil, Iran cannot fund its military. Without China buying its oil, Iran cannot fund the Revolutionary Guard Corps. Without China buying its oil at a steep discount, Iran's warfighting capacity collapses. Now think about this from Beijing's perspective. Over 55% of all Chinese oil imports come from the Middle East. The closure of the Strait of Hormuz during this war disrupted what the International Energy Agency called the largest supply disruption in the history of the global oil market. Oil prices surged past $100 per barrel. China was stockpiling an estimated 1.4 billion barrels in strategic reserves. But even that cushion has limits. So China needs Iran's oil. Iran needs China's money. And both of them need the Strait of Hormuz open. That's the foundation of everything that follows. But here's my question to you. Is this just business, or is China building something bigger? Something that goes beyond oil? Think about it. Write your take in the comments. I'll pin the most thought-provoking responses. Now let's talk about the part of this story that almost nobody is covering. And it might be the most important piece of all. Before the first manpad was even discussed, China had already given Iran something far more valuable: access to the Beidou satellite navigation system. Beidou is China's answer to America's GPS. It's a constellation of over 30 satellites providing positioning, navigation, and timing services globally. And according to multiple intelligence analysts and former French intelligence director Alain Julet, Iran appears to have transitioned significant parts of its military architecture from GPS to Beidou. Why does this matter? Because GPS is controlled by the United States. In wartime, the US can degrade or jam GPS signals over an enemy's territory. Iran's older missiles relied heavily on GPS, making them vulnerable. But Beidou's encrypted military signals are designed to resist Western electronic warfare and jamming. Under optimal conditions, Beidou can provide accuracy down to the centimeter level. The result, according to analysts, Iran's missile accuracy in the 2026 war was dramatically better than during its 12-day conflict with Israel in June 2025. A drone that struck a U.S. facility in Kuwait, killing 6 American service members, hit coordinates that don't appear on any public map. That level of precision doesn't come from homegrown technology alone. And Beidou offers something GPS doesn't: a built-in short-message communication circuit. That means Iranian command nodes could potentially coordinate strikes even if local communication networks were destroyed. One analyst put it bluntly: Beidou provides a sovereign-grade, sanctions-proof navigational backbone that improves Iranian precision without requiring Beijing to make a visible decision in each engagement. The effect is real. The fingerprints are engineered to be absent. Think about that phrase. The fingerprints are engineered to be absent. That's not accidental support. That's architecture. That's a system designed so that China can arm Iran while maintaining total deniability. Are you starting to see the pattern? So let's put all the pieces together, because once you see this triangle, you can't unsee it. Side 1. The oil deal. China buys over 90% of Iran's oil exports at a steep discount. This generates tens of billions in revenue for Tehran annually, money that directly funds Iran's military and government operations. In return, China secures cheap, reliable energy from a supplier that has no other options. Side 2. The peacemaker performance. On March 31st, China and Pakistan jointly announced a 5-point peace initiative. China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi made 26 phone calls to leaders across the region. According to the New York Times, China played a key role in convincing Iran to accept a 2-week ceasefire. The White House confirmed Chinese involvement. Beijing positioned itself as a responsible global stakeholder working for peace. Side 3. The shadow arsenal. Behind the scenes, according to U.S. intelligence, China was simultaneously preparing to ship Manpad missile systems to Iran through third countries. Chinese companies continued selling dual-use military technology. Chinese ports continued loading Iranian vessels with rocket fuel ingredients. And China's Beidou system continued providing Iran with a precision targeting that made its missiles deadlier than ever before. Now, one CNN source explained the strategy like this: China sees no real strategic value in openly entering the conflict to protect Iran, because they know a direct confrontation with the United States would be unwinnable. Instead, Beijing is positioning itself as a continued friend to Iran while maintaining outward neutrality so it can preserve deniability after the war is over. And the Chinese government has a ready-made legal argument prepared. Air defense systems are defensive, not offensive. They can claim they're helping Iran protect its airspace, not attack anyone. But let's be honest with ourselves, when you buy someone's oil at a discount, broker their ceasefire for global credibility, and then secretly arm them during that same ceasefire, you're not playing defense. You're playing chess, and everyone else is a piece on your board. Here's what I want to know from you. Do you think China actually wants peace in the Middle East, or does instability serve Beijing's long-term interests? This is a serious question. I want to hear your reasoning in the comments. So where does this go from here? President Trump responded to the intelligence by saying, if China does that, China will have big problems. He's expected to meet with Chinese President Xi Jinping next month in Beijing. The manpad shipment will undoubtedly be on the table, but the Islamabad peace talks have already collapsed. After 21 hours of direct negotiations, the highest-level face-to-face contact between the US and Iran since 1979, Vice President J.D. Vance left Pakistan without a deal. Iran refused to accept US terms on nuclear enrichment. The US refused to ease sanctions without Iranian concessions. The 2-week ceasefire window is ticking down. And here's the scenario that should concern everyone. If the ceasefire collapses, and the intelligence suggests Iran is using this pause to rearm, then the next phase of this conflict could be significantly more dangerous. Iran still holds roughly half its missile launchers and about 50% of its drone capabilities, hidden in extensive tunnel networks. Thousands of one-way attack drones remain in Iranian arsenals. And if Chinese manpads reach the battlefield, every low-flying American aircraft becomes a higher-risk target. The cost-benefit equation is brutal. A single manpad missile costs tens of thousands of dollars. The aircraft it targets costs tens or hundreds of millions. That's asymmetric warfare in its purest form. Meanwhile, Russia is also in the picture, sharing intelligence with Iran on US military positions, helping Tehran proactively target American troops and warships. Moscow and Beijing are not formally coordinating, but their parallel support creates a layered system that makes Iran far more capable than it would be alone. The question isn't whether this shadow war is happening. The evidence is overwhelming that it is. The real question is, what is America going to do about it? And more importantly, what can it do when the country arming its enemy is also its largest trading partner? And that's the uncomfortable truth that nobody in Washington wants to say out loud. The country that holds over $1 trillion in US debt, the country that manufactures a massive share of American consumer goods, the country whose economy is intertwined with America's at every level, that country is quietly building the arsenal that threatens American pilots over Iranian skies. This isn't a conspiracy theory. This is documented intelligence reported by CNN, Bloomberg, The New York Times, and confirmed through US congressional reports. The triangular game, oil, peace, and weapons, is happening in plain sight for anyone willing to look. So I'll leave you with one final question. In this three-way game between Washington, Beijing, and Tehran, who's really winning? And who's being played? Drop your answer below. I read every single comment, and the discussions on this channel are some of the sharpest on YouTube. If this video opened your eyes to something you hadn't seen before, hit that like button. It tells the algorithm this kind of content matters. Share it with someone who needs to see the full picture. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Mido, Unfiltered. We don't do surface level here, we go deep, we go unfiltered. And we always follow the evidence wherever it leads. I'll see you in the next one.